CFL. Let them know.
Welcome to Saturdays in Canada with Black Hawk Wes here on the Sports Betting Channel. And Wes, we finally got it done.
We did, and my feet still haven't hit the ground from it. I mean, there is
Jesus. I thank you, Jesus. I thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, it was fun. And you know what? Here's what I got for our notes. Before we start, you threw me out the number. It's 74%, 74 point something percent. So 74%, again, that's winning circa, right? Am I off base saying that, do you think?
I would think that's winning circa. I mean, that's 75 and 25.
Well, you know what I'm more proud of? Here's what I'm more proud of. There's a lot of reasons to watch shows. For entertainment, for education, whatever, it doesn't matter. You watch what you want to watch. However, from the get-go, we have told you, whether it was Sports Betting Weekly on the radio, Sports Betting Weekly on the podcast, Saturdays in Canada, any of the shows we're on with these guys. Look what we've done with the radio guys. Billy Elvis, I've given a ton of winners, and of course the New York guys and the W Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We've kicked ass there. But listen to this: if you just watch our show as a side gig, and you're a $20 player, you were making $46 an hour. Remember we talked about that, Wes, last week, and I said that's pretty good. That's like what the union drivers are getting at UPS now. You got a raise. You got a bump up in earnings, baby, because you are now, right? Listen to this. You are now making $57.96. So $57.96 an hour if you watch the entire show and you bet what we bet and you bet $20. Wes, you've made it clear that you're not a $20 bettor. But what I'm looking at is a number that you cannot tell me that's not realistic, right? Because that's an $80, well, actually, it's an $88 investment every week.
It is.
If you made it 50, do you know, if you made it 50, it works out to $106.50 an hour. $100 an hour side gig. So here's what we did. We asked those boys at Google, if you make $160 or $106.50 an hour, what's that like for a year? It's $213K. Now, there's just not a lot of $213K side gigs out there.
That's doctor money, and not just doctor like primary care physician. I mean, that's like you're a specialist.
Very excited. So congratulations to you for your success and our winning. So let's look at. I got the games up here. Let's look at Hamilton, Ottawa, because my notes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have 4 games that we went over last week. I have 12 words written down. That's how simple it was to describe these games to me. But I just wrote another dog money line.
Yeah, and we did not. The beauty in what we just did at 4-0, there wasn't even a moment where there was doubt. I mean, there were some games that were more competitive than others, but we won, and there was no stress.
Well, yeah, because if you look at that second game, it was Toronto, and Toronto did what Toronto does. I mean, when you get up 21-0 at halftime, now I gotta send this. I have to send the thanks out to Sask for blowing my 2-teamer because. At the last minute, I said, I just got a feeling Toronto's going to score a lot of points. I remember I was at the gym, and when I came out, they were already up 13-0. This is great, right? They're up 21-0. All I need is a field goal. The over was 23. Sask has the ball on the 1-yard line and fumbles it into the end zone, and that's why they're Saskatchewan. And then, so the word I have for that one was Argos. The next game, I also have one word. And that was the BC Lions shutout game, and I just wrote Elks. And that really wasn't the Elks. I mean, they were trying to not show the losing record they have. We've been talking about it for 3 years. But it really wasn't one play. It was just domination.
It was domination. Now, they still made some signature Elk plays. There were some boneheaded penalties in there that they didn't need to take. But, I mean, you can see the frustration. But there were some penalties at times that didn't need to happen. But, Dane Evans, over 300 yards. And this is a competent QB2, probably the best QB2 in the league. But that was a BC Lion beatdown. I mean, there's a good argument that they're the best team in the CFL right now. I mean, as there is for Toronto, but that was a BC beatdown.
Yeah, they don't give up any points at all. And then finally, I wrote back to back versus the best. And we talked about that in our text thread with me, you, and John. The bottom line is they had just come off a 3-game stand where they played BC, Toronto, and Winnipeg. I don't know what order it was. I don't have that written down, but it doesn't matter. So as you know, when you play the best, it's like those teams that go out in college football and get checks right at the beginning of the season. They go out and get their asses handed to them to get those big checks, and then they come home and they play somebody in their conference and they just annihilate them. The score that score does not tell the story of that game. Would you agree?
Yeah, it doesn't. It was a little bit more competitive than what the score showed, but yeah, they're coming off of a few games where they just faced Murderers Row.
And we got a 1/2 money line cash because they were getting a 1/2 point. They were getting a 1/2 point. It was a push. Oh, no. I remember what it was. What happened was I hedged. I had a lot of action going into that game because I have a lot of bets, as you do, but I have a lot of round robin. So I had a lot of money on this game. All right, what would I do? So the second half I hedged, and the hedge pushed, and the parlays pushed for the second half, so I cashed every ticket. I got all my money back. It was just a really great day. And, of course, as you know, I also had $1,000 trifecta at Saratoga. So what did you say? Your feet won't touch the ground until Thursday?
Well, probably tomorrow. Probably tomorrow. You come off a 4-0 week. We know we've been winning, but the first 3 weeks, that maybe 4 weeks, the one loss happened on the last game of week. So we went 3-0, and then boom, Sunday would smack us upside the head and say, "Wait, you're a human again."
Yeah.
And so there wasn't any cockiness going into the following week. It was more determination. So we got our work cut out this week. This is a tough slate we have.
Yes, no doubt about it, and we'll talk about that when we get back. You're watching Saturdays in Canada on the Sports Betting Channel with Black Hawk West, sponsored by ChampionshipFootballs.com. You're getting a 100% money-back guarantee on every single souvenir football from ChampionshipFootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. How hard is it to find the right gift for someone that already has everything? Whether that special present is for a Georgia Bulldogs fan or a member of the Kansas City Chiefs kingdom. Maybe your grandfather has been a Dallas Cowboy fan as long as you've been alive. Does your brother-in-law live in Penn State territory? Do you know a member of the University of Baylor Alumni Association? Is there a better birthday gift for someone who's 100% all Tulane Green Wave? Send them the coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Now, if your favorite pro team is the Jacksonville Jaguars or those Minnesota Vikings, we're sorry about that. If you are a Louisiana Monroe Warhawk or an East Carolina Pirate alumni, not much they can do. After all, the name isn't "You Had a Pretty Good Season Footballs.com. The name is ChampionshipFootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. With thousands of buyers across the country, you'll always get the most amount of money for your bet on PropSwap. So hurry to PropSwap while it's early and grab a ticket or two. The odds are always the highest right now. It really does pay to get in early. Go to PropSwap.com or download the free PropSwap app today. PropSwap is where America buys and sells sports bets. Welcome back to Saturdays in Canada with Black Hawk West here on the Sports Betting Channel, sponsored by ChampionshipFootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. And Wes, we have to say, my wife and I, Vicky and I, we don't have little kids in our house. She's ready for grandkids. I'm not, but sooner or later they're gonna come in, whether I want it or not. The point is, we got to watch Quinn's opening video for the football, and it was just adorable.
Well, thank you. He had fun doing it, and it was his birthday week, so the football showed up just on time, and that'll be in his man cave one day, and that video ain't going anywhere. I'm going to show it to him and embarrass him when he's older, and
Oh,
I'm
that's a
glad.
perfect thing when he brings his first girl home for prom.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's see what we got. Talk about starting the week off with a bang. Without a doubt, two of the top three teams in the league, BC at Winnipeg. It's 45 -5.
So I am looking at the injuries because, as we know, VA is the question mark. We knew that last week BC was going to hold back anybody that was questionable. Rhymes didn't play in the game. We got to see a little bit of Lucky Whitehead, which was pretty cool. I mean, he is still one of the fastest men in the CFL. For whatever reason, he's not a big part of their game plan, but it opened at 4.5, and I jumped on and I took the points BC. Now we're up to 6 or 5.5, depending on where you're looking. But this Winnipeg O line is not good, and BC's defense is very good. And BC held them to 6 points the last time they played. I don't even think it's about Vernon Adams. Now, I believe, and this is purely opinion, but I believe that he is going to start, and they're not going to announce it until pregame or something like that. But BC has a fully healthy roster at Vernon Adams Jr., and it doesn't even matter to me that Winnipeg is coming off of a bye. This is not the same Winnipeg team that we could just close our eyes and bet on. They're laying big points against the best defense by, I think, 30 points allowed per game to the number 2 defense. So I'm on BC because of their defense. I think that they can manhandle Winnipeg's offense, and Zach will throw picks.
Here's the thing that I'm looking at with the Easy Sports data. All right, we talked about Toronto put up 45 on them. The other 6 games combined, they haven't put up 45 on anybody. So you look at that head-to-head, and it's jumping out at you, 30-6. And so you say to yourself, well, obviously Winnipeg's going to want some. The bottom line is it doesn't matter what Winnipeg wants because it may be just simply BC's better. It could be really that simple. So I'm going to tell you that BC against the spread this year, now remember I told you about week 9 or 10, I'm going to hold off on the last year Easy Sports data unless there's a trend that continues, and this is one of them. They're 5-2 against the spread in the first half. That's not bad, right? Would you agree that's not a bad number?
That's great.
Yeah. They're 12-2 in the second half and the game. They're 6-1 against the spread in the second half, 6-1 against the spread for the game. And then the third team we mentioned in that top 3, which really is, I don't think at this point, up for debate, right? Those are the 3 head and shoulders. And how many shows have we been on where we talked about our CFL betting? Because we're really unique in that world that there's no one else really doing it in North America. I mean, in the United States. But we talked about you got to find the 3 teams that are good, the 3 teams that suck, and then the 3 teams in the middle you got to figure out it week to week. But the top 3 and the bottom 3, they're pretty easy when they're playing somebody else. This is 51. Think about that. 51. I think that's the highest number we've spit out in a while. And Calgary's at home getting 8. I didn't even handicap this game.
So this one you might jump out of your chair, but I like Calgary in this spot. I'm taking the 8 points, and I'm doing it for a couple different reasons. Weird ones, but Toronto has not played at home since July 3rd. This is over a month that they've been on the road. So last week was listed as a home game, but it was not in Toronto. It was at Halifax. And then I started looking through some statistics. They can't win them all. I mean, this Toronto team has proven they're capable of it. But the stat that jumped off the page at me was Calgary is one of the top 2 teams for the amount of yards they gain on first down. They're averaging over 7 yards on first down. And Toronto is upper 6 yards allowed on first down. I think that first yard gain that Calgary is capable of is going to put Toronto's defense in a little bit different situation. I don't know that Calgary wins this game, but Calgary has had some late game heroics. I think that we're in for a backdoor cover to mess it up. Calgary has struggled the last couple weeks in the red zone, but they can score passing touchdowns, and Toronto has no problem allowing you to go to the distance. But then they shut you down at the goal line. So I like Calgary in this spot. I like getting the 8 points. I just Toronto has been on the road for so long. At some point, it's got to catch up to them.
You would think that, right? But if we go back on our Easy Sports data, the last time, so they had a push. They had a push in 22. Actually, they had back-to-back games against Calgary. They lost 29-2. And then they came back at Edmonton and they won 28-23, but they were given 5. Otherwise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1-1. I like 9-1-1. All right, but that 51, what about that?
I'm sorry, the 51.
The 51. That's just the highest total we've said, I think, in a while.
Yeah. It is high, and it's because Calgary allows points. Calgary, I want to say they're 3 or 4 as far as points allowed, but they can also score them. And Toronto gets points on defense. So, but that's a big number. But it's easy to say we're going under because that's the biggest number we've seen. But I think if Calgary is going to win, they're going to have to put up 24, 25. If they're going to cover the spread, they're definitely going to have to get into the 20s.
Yeah, because Toronto's getting theirs.
Toronto's getting 25 no matter what.
All right, so when we get back from break, we are going to, well, you know what? Let's see what we're going to do. We're going to talk about Quinn's Kansas City Chiefs football. You're going to hear about the Tulane. Now, we're not going to make the Tulane announcement, but if the Lord's good to us, we're going to be in New Orleans for the Tulane home opener in the stadium, selling footballs, and it's Labor Day weekend. That would be a good day. You're listening to Saturdays in Canada with Blackhawk West here on the Sports Betting Channel, sponsored by ChampionshipFootballs.com. Your Kansas City Chiefs are Super Bowl champions. Here's the coolest present any Chiefs fan will open that day guaranteed. These full-size, NFL licensed, full-color souvenir footballs celebrate all 3 of Kansas City's Super Bowl titles. The top panel of these limited edition footballs has logos and scores from the first 2 championships with all the game information from the Super Bowl 57 win. The second side has the score from every regular season and playoff game. These footballs make an incredible gift for your favorite Kansas City Chiefs fan, even if it's you. ChampionshipFootballs.com, the coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Your Tulane Green Wave are Cotton Bowl champions. Here's the coolest present any Tulane football fan will open that day, guaranteed. These full-size NCAA licensed full-color souvenir footballs celebrate the historic season that included the largest one-year turnaround in history and a victory in the first Green Wave New Year's Six Bowl since 1940. The top panel of these limited edition footballs has all the Cotton Bowl game victory information. The second side has the score from every regular season game of the 12-2 season, along with their first ever AAC title. These footballs make an incredible gift for your favorite Tulane Green Wave fan, even if it's you. ChampionshipFootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Welcome back to Saturdays in Canada with Blackhawk West here on the Sports Betting Channel. I tell you, those are 2 great stories. I mean, the Chiefs, it's always been known that environment is the best environment in the NFL. I've heard it for 20 years, and of course, you know it better than any because you've been there every Sunday for, 7 years, 8 years now you've had season tickets?
I can count on one hand the amount of times my rear end has actually touched the seat.
Yeah, exactly. That's excitement in a nutshell, no doubt about it.
And we're talking games in September, games in October. I mean, just games where it's a team.
They run out of fireworks, for heaven's sakes. Think about that concept.
Yeah, they did.
And of course, Tulane, the greatest turnaround in NCAA history. That was just exciting. And for both of those teams, not as much the Chiefs because they're always given so much, but Tulane, there was a lot of those games. They were still getting points early in the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So what do we got next Saturday? Montreal at Hamilton, 45 plus 1.5.
This is the easiest one. I'm taking Montreal. Yes, Hamilton's coming off of a win. That's not about Hamilton being a good team. I mean, Bo Levi Mitchell just threw 6 interceptions and Hamilton won a game. I mean, Bo Levi's injured. It's a sad thing because he was my first crush, in a CFL quarterback. But I just don't think Hamilton has an answer. And this Montreal defense is good. I mean, they're really good. They're number 3, 4 back and forth for points allowed per game. Cody's not taking over the league, but man, I love what William Stanback did this past game. Montreal is not putting up a ton of points, but they don't need to because they're not allowing it. Montreal's strength of schedule has been brutal, so they're not getting the recognition they need. But I think they're going to start to separate themselves from the rest of the division as second. When this first came out, Montreal was a 1-point dog. I think it was in the initial screenshot. Now they're laying 3. I'm happy to lay the 2.5. My action was at 1, but Montreal is going to win this game.
Yeah, so what we've got from the Easy Sports data, this one is pretty wild. We talk about defense. In the second half this year, Montreal's games have gone under 5 out of 6, and Hamilton's last 6 have gone under 5 of the 6. But when they go on the road, the numbers are even better. Hamilton does cover in the second half, but they're not winning those games. I really, too, was impressed by Montreal last week. I mean, don't get me wrong. We needed them. I was giving them a little extra love, but it is true. They went through that stretch where they played the 3 best teams in the league back to back to back. I would say I'd be worried if I was the next 3 teams on their schedule.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so let's do this. Let's talk about where you are with your CFL future bets.
So there's no value on BC. There really isn't. It's BC 1, Toronto 2, and Winnipeg goes back and forth. But, there's still value on Montreal. And it's not, and I got them at plus 1,200 to start the season. They are not the best team in the CFL, but it's winning a future is about value and just buying a lottery ticket. And I think that when we get to the playoffs and the weather starts to change a little bit, Montreal and Toronto know each other really well. There is a chance. I mean, last year, there was a very strong chance that Montreal was winning that game and going to the Grey Cup. So the value is still there. I really, though, I think it's BC and Toronto and everybody else. I think that BC and Toronto are a step ahead of Winnipeg even. And of course, the football gods might laugh at me and then have Winnipeg come out and do what Blue Bombers do. But the values on Toronto, you can get a lot of money if you laid the plus 2,500 on Sask, but you're not going to win that bet.
What about the number that Winnipeg has to drop to that you say all of a sudden now that value that wasn't there when we started the season is there?
Well, I think BC putting up another dominant performance against Winnipeg probably brings back our value. I mean, right now, the odds makers still believe that Winnipeg is the Winnipeg of last year, and they very well could be. We could be dead wrong.
In their defense, and those guys' defense, we ain't been too good with this Winnipeg team.
No, we haven't. We can't figure them out this year. But again, I don't believe their O-line is very good. But I think if they lose this week at home, the following week they're going on the road at Edmonton, so it's still going to be a big number. And then after that, they stay on the road for the next 2 weeks. Then they get Calgary, and that number will be interesting because we know they're going to smoke Edmonton. But what happens this week, and then in week 11 when they're on the road at Calgary, especially the next couple weeks that Calgary's going to have.
But we have had a unique season. Of the 3 that I've really paid a lot of attention, this is the most quarterbacks going down that I've seen.
Yeah, we're looking at Winnipeg's healthy at quarterback, BC's healthy at quarterback, Toronto's healthy at quarterback, and it's no coincidence those are the top 3. You got to call Montreal the number 4 team. They're healthy at quarterback. Nothing's happened to Cody. And then when you go to Calgary, nothing's happened to Jake Mayer. But the other 4 teams, they're QB3, QB2. Bo Levi's on his second injury, so we're back to QB1, and now he's going down again. So Ottawa and Edmonton, they don't know which way is up when it comes to the quarterback position.
All right, hold on one second, because right about now, if you're checking us out on Belly Up Sports Podcast Network, Thursday morning, 8 o'clock Pacific time.
420. I
It's
love that
about
number.
8:20, which makes it 4:20 over in London. I've mentioned my nephew's at Oxford, and I actually spoke with him we had a long call. I'm assuming with cell phones, if you got overseas, you pay the same. Remember in the old days, that was a phone call. We got to go. This phone call's costing us $100. But he told me he went to some of the races over there, and the warm Peroni was flowing. And I'm thinking about it. That whole warm beer thing, I've never really was able to handle that.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything.
Whole different world. Well, I mean, think about it. The Bud tent at the Chiefs game. If they started pouring out warm buds,
No, couldn't do it.
It'd get ugly quick. All right, so when we get back, well, first of all, what are you going to say? You're going to hear from Juana. You're going to hear about our contest. And when we get back, we're going to catch the game that could be 8 straight for us. Actually, I don't know what happened at the end of last week. I think we might have won. We might be on a 5-game winning streak, I think. I don't remember. But, again, you're making $100 an hour if you're a $50 player. Back off. Saturdays in Canada. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Leaf.
Hello, and we're here to tell you about our Wake and Bake Twitter contest. You don't even need to be a great handicapper to win.
This one is so easy, even I can win.
That's right, Leaf. Anybody can win. All you have to do is...
Can I do the disclaimer?
Leaf, the disclaimer is at the end.
Sorry.
All you have to do is take a screenshot of any game that you're watching where the clock has stopped at exactly 4:20.
420. I love that number.
We know you do, Leaf. Now please let me finish.
Sorry.
If the clock stops at 4:20 during any game you're watching, take a screenshot showing the clock and tag Chaz on Twitter with a picture.
Go to @secondhalfchaz, add the picture, and you're in.
You'll be entered in a drawing for a $100 gift certificate at championshipfootballs.com.
In a world where most cannabis gummies are hashy, melty, or just plain gross, one brand will rise up to forever change what an edible can be. Vegan and gluten-free ingredients, 30-plus terpenes, and a melt-proof recipe star in Wana. Not all edibles are created equal. Now in theaters. Dispensaries.
Welcome back to Saturdays in Canada with Black Hawk West here on the Sports Betting Channel. We are sponsored by Championship Footballs. However, I have found that if you have a Championship Football, it's great. But if you have a Wana gummy, it's just a little bit better. Now, that is my personal opinion, and I will put an asterisk next to it. But we are looking at Ottawa, Saskatchewan. This is Sunday, 4 o'clock. The fourth game of the weekend, 44. The Sask at home getting a point.
I'm on Sask money line, and I'll say it for a lot of reasons. One, Sask has a great coach. I really like that coach. I know that they're on a backup quarterback, but I'm going to go back to what Sask did against Toronto. Sask put up 426 yards, so they outgained Toronto last week. They beat them in time of possession. They held the ball for 32 minutes to Toronto's 21. Right? We've said Toronto, all they do is cover, all they do is win. Where Toronto beat them was they sacked them 5 times, and they took the ball away 3 times. They had 2 fumbles that they recovered, and then there was an interception. So Toronto let Sask run up and down the field on them.
Wasn't one of those a pick 6?
One of them was a pick 6.
Yep.
But if you look at the statistics, if you go to CFL.ca, they do this thing with the bars. They got the blue and they got the green. And if you look at that and not the actual score of the game, you would think that Sask won the game. So now we fast forward this week. We got a team that just lost. They weren't outplayed. They didn't look foolish. They just had some key mistakes that cost the game. But now you turn around and you got an angry team at home. I've said it many times. Mosaic is the nicest, most loud, best stadium when they're rocking in the CFL, and they're getting Ottawa on the road. And Ottawa had 2 good weeks where they forced some overtime. They just got beat by Hamilton, who has a terrible defense. They only hung 12. So I think that this is the easiest pick of the week. I know I said that about Toronto, but this one truly was easy for me. Sask at home, it's basically a pick 'em. I think you're even money if you take the money line, but I mean Sask just really shown what they could do against Toronto.
So let me ask you a question. In this game, are you as much betting against the Red Blacks as you are betting on the Rough Riders?
So the Red Blacks are hard to figure out because I like they got something of a scrappy defense. They just there's no consistency. They hung 12 points, yet 2 weeks ago had a comeback to win and hang 43 points in overtime. So there's just no consistency, and how could there be? Their quarterback is a position that's unspoken for. But I think the league has film on Crum now, and so I'm betting for Sask. I'm betting for Sask's coach. I like their roster, and I like what they did against Toronto.
Yeah, at home they're 1-8 against the spread. Overall, their last 13, they're 2-11 against the spread. But this really game isn't a spread game, right? Because it's basically a coin flip.
It is a coin flip. It is a coin flip. I mean, as far as the point spread goes, but right. I think Sask is being disrespected in this game. But they're coming off of they played Toronto 2 weeks ago. They played BC. Of course, their statistics aren't going to look very good when they play against the defense that
again. We talked about that, with the 9 they got beat 19-9 to BC, right? And they got beat 31-13 to Toronto, and neither of those are embarrassing games compared to the names on the other side of the scoreboard.
Yeah, and then if you go back to week 6, they hung 31 points against a realistic opponent versus instead of these superhuman opponents they played the last 2 weeks. They lost the game, but they hung 31 points on Calgary, and Calgary is about a middle of the road even matchup for Sask.
Yeah, they must like them because they've played twice, right? They've put up 60 on Calgary in the 2 games, 29-31.
Yep.
All right, so where are you in terms of going into a week after you were perfect? It is part of that same next that we have when we lose is the same when we win, but I don't know, it's a sweeter next, isn't it?
Yeah, so for you've heard me and John from GMF preaches all the time. You've heard me talk bankroll management for years, so I'll tell you exactly what it was. I cashed myself out. I took some Bitcoins out, bought the dip earlier today, which was wonderful. Bitcoin was down to 28.2, but what I do after a week like this, really after 2 weeks, really going 7-1 in 2 weeks, I cash myself down to where my total bankroll has me betting 75% of the value of what a unit was a week ago. So if I was a $10 better last week, I am now a $7.50 better. I paid myself, and I'm going to build it back up. Nobody ever got hurt by paying themselves.
No, never. And the other aspect of it, which is real important, I think, is to understand why anyone that ever tells you shouldn't be betting parlays is ignorant, because that fraction of a unit, just on the off chance that you're right, and we did it, and it took 8 weeks, but not that we were losing the other 7 weeks, but the bottom line is that changes your whole bankroll, because it's like winning 12 units. It's like winning 12 games.
It's plus 2,400, I think, if you hit the 4-teamer.
Yeah. Oh, my man, it was such a great week 8. It really was. I was floating. I'm still kind of floating. I'm looking forward to week 9. And all we could do is always be cashing, huh?
Always be cashing. Let's get them.